Hi, I am Tanya, a growth marketer at Meritto. I welcome you all to this edition of Education Circuit by Meritto, where we host expert speakers, thought leaders, and decision makers from across the global education ecosystem. In this series, we dive deep into the latest insights, emerging trends, and proven best practices that are shaping the future of education. Over the past sessions, we've had the privilege of hosting incredible voices from institutions like Clark Atlanta University, Boston University, De Montfort University, Abu Dhabi University, American University in the Emirates, Asia Pacific University, and many more. Today promises to be just as insightful. And for those who don't know, Meritto is the global standard in enrollment technology for colleges and universities. We believe that admissions teams shouldn't have to navigate complex systems or struggle with outdated tools in an AI driven world where speed and precision are essential. That's why Meritto stands out with a purpose built solution designed for admissions professionals, not tech experts. With its intuitive interface, robust data architecture, and AI driven automation, Meritto empowers institutions to recruit smarter, engage students more effectively, and streamline the entire admissions journey. And for today's session, we have Victoria Herrick. Victoria is a dynamic enrollment management professional with nearly a decade of experience in higher education. She has held various roles within admissions and enrollment, currently serving as the Associate Director of Admissions Recruitment at Old Dominion University, her alma mater. Passionate about guiding families through the college search processes, Victoria specializes in data driven outreach strategies and fostering team collaboration. She leads a team of 13 admission recruiters, empowering them to effectively connect with prospective students and support their journey towards higher education. We welcome you, Victoria. And joining us with a truly global perspective is Shabazz Siddiqui, Director of International Business at Meritto. With over a decade of experience in education technology, Shabazz has worked with more than 1,200 institutions across the UAE and Malaysia, helping them drive meaningful enrollment growth through technology that's built for execution, not complexity. He's played a key role in making Meritto the go to platform for institutions aiming to simplify their processes, scale faster, and today, and he's here to help us connect strategy to implementation. Hi, Shabazz.
Hi, Tanya. Thank you so much for the introduction. Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon.
So, I couldn't be more excited to dive into a power packed discussion around a topic that's front and center of every US university right now, future proofing the undergraduate admissions office in the US. And we've just got the two right people to dive deep with us. So, let's jump right in. So, Victoria, before we get into the core of today's topic, let me start with something a bit light. You've seen admissions evolve rapidly over the years. So, if you had to describe today's students in just three words, what would that be?
So I think there's been a big shift. College going isn't the same as it used to be. It's not that traditional track. So I think for me, we've seen a big shift with students going right into the workforce or looking for more opportunities for certifications or trainings. I see that as a big shift. And also just with that, a big shift to, looking at community colleges first. That's something that we're seeing a lot, I think, in our area, being in an area where there's a high military population. So those would be some of the big trends that we're seeing right now.
Right, that's a real paints the picture. Now let's talk about what you're seeing on the ground. So what does the enrollment landscape look like at Old Dominion University right now? What kind of students are you seeing coming through the door?
Great question. So we're really fortunate at Old Dominion University to have a very diverse student body. So where we're situated, as I mentioned in my previous response, we have a lot of military affiliated students, whether that's a military member themselves or someone who maybe is a military dependent and in the area because of that. So we have a very diverse student body with students coming from all over the country and internationally, which is really exciting. It makes it an exciting environment for myself as someone on the staff side, but also an exciting environment for our students, which is great. We've also seen some shifts, as I mentioned. A big shift that we're seeing right now with our students is we're having a shift in focus on top scholars. So we are a R1 research institution, which is the highest research designation an institution can receive. So we are having a heavy focus on some of those STEM majors right now. especially with our recent merger with Eastern Virginia Medical School, which is opening up a lot of opportunities for our students because they're able to see that more direct pipeline if they are interested in a program within the medical field. And with this merger, we've also become the largest health sciences center in the state of Virginia, which is really, really exciting. So I think we're definitely seeing more students that are STEM driven and seeing some of those top scholars come through our door.
Well, that's such a rich mix of student profiles. So, Shabazz, from your many conversations with US universities, I'm curious to know how would you describe the current state of undergraduate admissions landscape? Like, what trends are shaping how institutions think about recruitment today?
Sure. The undergraduate admission landscape, is rapidly evolving, driven by a mix of technology advancements, demographic shifts, and changing, societal expectations. And if I have to tell you what is the current state, so I'll summarize in few of the pointers. The first one is increased competition. So we have seen a lot of institutions which are coming up, which are attracting the students, especially with declining enrollment rate in some of the regions. Right, international student remains a focus. Right, though a lot of factors plays a role in this particular international recruitment, like the visa processing time, the government, which is, the currently there, what are the local government or let's say the US government role in attracting those international students, technology integrations. So admission processes are increasingly digital, right? While tools like CRM platforms, AI-driven analytics, and virtual campus tools are becoming a very standard practice, like in the evolving landscape, diversity and inclusions. So there is a stronger emphasis on creating diverse, inclusive student bodies. Many institutions have reevaluated their admission criteria to promote equity, often moving away from standardized tests like SAT and ACT. That we can see there is a cost of affordability, rising tuition costs are a barrier for many students, pushing institutions to rethink scholarships and financial aids are offered for the remaining competitive space. When you talk about trends that are reshaping recruitment, the first and foremost is data-driven personalization. We have seen the technology adaptability in all the education space where they are using the tools like CRM or AI-powered systems to drive their data-driven decisions. There is more focus on retention over enrollment. So recruiting the right set of student is something where higher education institutions are focusing because it takes a lot of effort to recruit a student. And if you're not retaining a student, right, the entire effort that has been put goes in vain. So it's very much important to retain the student. So it's important to correct the pipeline from the beginning itself, like what type of students we are recruiting, what is going to be their retention rate, whether they're going to complete their program or not, whether they're going to drop off, whether they're going to shift to another organization. Virtual and hybrid engagements we have seen post pandemic, right? Virtual recruitment events like open houses, webinars have become very common, and that's why we are also doing this type of webinar and interaction, right? But we also prefer, a lot of community events where we can meet in person and have, interaction with the recruiters or the enrollment guys, right? We can see, there is AI automation that we are seeing, which is the current trend where you are having your virtual sales guy or you can have your virtual representatives answering the questions on behalf of your team, and that plays a very vital role when it comes to international students or students coming from different backgrounds. So you're not relying on the human resource, at the same time you're empowering them, that there's a virtual assistant that even if you're not in office, that can answers the query of the particular students. So that has become a really change and shift in terms of what is shaping the enrollment in the US landscape.
Well, that's quite the picture, and I'm sure that we're going to dive deeper into all of it today. So now let's dig deeper into that diversity you mentioned. Victoria, my next question is to you. So all Old Dominion University welcomed everyone from high achieving freshmen to transfer and online learners. So how do you and your team think about, reaching and supporting such different student groups effectively?
That's a great question. I think that first and foremost, you have to have dedicated recruiters and staff so that you are meeting the needs because these are a diverse group of learners. They have different needs. Their processes are going to look a little bit different. The way they think through these processes is going to be different. So we definitely try to have staff there that are specifically dedicated to them. So for example, we have someone that is solely dedicated on working with transfer students. So they really understand their thought process, their challenges, how we can overcome those challenges with them. Of course, we have a large team working with our freshman students. And something else we've done more recently is we've broken out our global division. So ODU Global has their own division now with their own admissions team working through those processes, because as I mentioned, an online student, their needs, what they're concerned about is going to be very different than potentially that student that is going to a high school in our backyard, planning to come on campus and may have questions about housing or questions about having a car on campus or something like that. So making sure you have those dedicated staff first and foremost. I think also meeting students where they are. So as Shabazz mentioned, it's not necessarily as challenging to get a student to have general interest and to maybe submit that application, but keeping them interested, getting them to deposit, and then retaining them can be more of a challenge. So you really need to meet students where they are. And what I mean by that is being in spaces where they are organically going already. They may not be as interested in receiving, the 20th email of the day from us going over why we are a great fit for them. So being in some of those spaces on social media, I found has been really, really helpful, because they're interacting with us a little bit more organically there. They're already there. They're tending to look at content, to direct message us, to be a little bit more involved with us on those platforms. And then I think with that, leaning into the data. So utilizing our CRM heavily to say, okay, so if we look historically at our students that have deposited and have confirmed, what were we doing with them? Were they a student that was on a certain social media platform and engaged with us? Were they coming from a specific area that maybe we need to tap into that a little bit more? So definitely leaning on the data, and then also meeting them where they are with events. I think for us, once we get a student to campus or to have that additional engagement point with us, the interest definitely skyrockets. So getting them on campus to attend an open house or an admitted students day, or even just a campus tour to get a sense for the campus community typically makes a huge difference. But we also recognize that not every student can make it to campus. That's just not feasible for everyone. So offering those other avenues for students to engage with us, whether that be doing a recruitment reception in their backyard. So maybe traveling up to Northern Virginia and having a recruitment reception in that area so that families and students can access that a little bit easier than making a 4-hour drive, if traffic's okay, maybe longer with traffic down to campus. So thinking of them in that respect. And then also virtual events. I have seen personally that virtual events are not dead. They're still here to stay. It is something that students and also parents are really engaging with. And I think, interacting with the parents a lot of times is really beneficial. It gives you a sense for what the student is thinking and also what the family is thinking, because I've noticed a trend in the past few years specifically where the college decision-making process is really a family decision. It's not just the student a lot of times making this decision, it's the whole family. So having content that is catered to the whole family, maybe it is a session specifically on financial aid where parents are really locked in and want to know what that financial aid process is going to be like. Or housing and safety, what is that going to look like for their student when they're moving away from home for the first time? What is their housing experience like? What measures do we have in place here to make sure that this is their home away from home? So I think really meeting students where they are and their families where they are is really important.
Well, that's very interesting. I'm already fascinated. And Shabazz, on that note, institutions often face resource constraints when catering to such varied audiences. So, what are the challenges you see teams consistently grappling with when it comes to enrollment growth, and how are the most successful ones overcoming them?
So when you talk about enrollment growth, it's a top priority for many institutions, but achieving it constantly requires navigating through complex challenges that Victoria also highlighted. So some of the challenges that I can think on top of my mind are like the changing demographics, like declining in number of traditional college age students in some regions, growing demand of adult education like online learning, flexible program formats, right? ROI driven, programs where they want to know what is the value proposition they're going to get once they are achieving their particular degree, right? Affordability and financial concerns, right? Rising tuition costs to higher, student debt is something that many of the students and the families, like we were discussing, are facing, right? Perceived value of a degree compared to alternative learning options like certifications, boot camps are something that they are also looking for. And there another challenge is over reliance on legacy approach, like continuous use of outdated recruitment tactics like broad mass mailings, right, or untargeted campaigns. Like Victoria also said, you have to be there, present in the place where your student are present. You have to answer their queries in a manner they want to perceive that particular query, how they want to absorb that. Right? It should feel home away from home for them. Right. Then we have seen brand differentiation. Right. So there are a lot of institutions that we have seen are shutting down because they are struggling to stand out in a saturated market. Right. Difficulty communicating unique value propositions. Right. Whether it's culture, outcome, right, alumni success. Retention challenge is always there, right? High attrition rates negatively impacting overall enrollment numbers because your retention is not there. Then technology and integration is also one more challenge that we have seen because a lot of organizations use fragmented systems. That the marketing team is using a separate system, the recruitment team is using a separate system, the financial aid is using a separate technology, and there is no link between the technologies. They are not interacting with each other, even if you're using a technology. That creates a lot of roadblock or a challenge for any of the institutions. Some of the successful institutions that we have seen, what strategies they have done to overcome these challenges are data-driven, recruitment, where they are using advanced CRM platforms, right, to track applicants' journey, personalize their outcomes, optimize the admission funnel, create an impact in terms of, conversion rates by engaging students at the right time with a tailored message rather than the generic messages. Holistic marketing strategies is also one thing that many of the institutions have adopted, right? So they are integrating digital campaigns, right? Like Victoria also mentioned that social media presence is very utmost important in nowadays, whether you are present where your student are present. So social media, email, SEO, right, are more important here as well. Then you have to focus on retention and outcomes, right? So align recruitment with student support services to improve retention. Understand why they are going, out of your campus, what could have been improved, right? So you can understand it personally. You can ask them for a chance to, convince them that they should not drop out from the particular program. So that also becomes important, right? Streamlining processes and technologies, like whatever technology that you're using, should be deeply integrated, right? It should be interacting with each other. Everyone should know where exactly the candidate is stuck. The candidate experience is very much important. So thus the personalized engagement is important. And with AI coming to picture, we have seen a lot of them using AI technologies like bots, etc., which are more agentic AIs, hyper personalized, that can answer the queries of the candidate in their native language. You can train that particular bot as per their culture. So when I know a particular candidate is coming from XYZ country, I understand their cultural differentiation. I know from my legacy data, like how we have recruited the students from, let's say, Southeast Asia region, China, India, from where maximum students are coming to US. So the particular bot can answer the queries of the particular candidate in that manner. It can understand what was the success rate with the previous students and answer the queries of the existing students or the new students in that direction. So these are a few of the things that organizations are adopting to overcome the challenges that they're facing in the recruitment space on day-to-day basis.
Well, thanks for that, Shabazz. I'm sure that I've audiences have already taken the notes of it. So, Victoria, one of the things that really stands out about ODU is your focus on partnerships, like the TCC ODU Manaki Ready program. So, how can universities build similar bridge programs to create smoother transitions for students and drive efficient enrollment pipelines?
And I think this is really important. As I mentioned, the traditional going college student is changing. Sometimes you are almost recruiting that freshman student to be a transfer student later, just in the market that we're in right now. So it's really important to have these strong partnerships with community colleges and other entities to have these bridge programs. So for us, I think we leaned on existing partnerships, which is what I would recommend to anyone. Most of us have a local community college or junior college near us that there's probably an organic flow of students already coming from. What can we do to make that better? So for us with TCC specifically, we were seeing, of course, a lot of students come from that school already, just because location-wise, they're one of our closest community colleges. Similarly, we recently established a bridge program with Virginia Peninsula Community College, which is also very close to us. And with both of these schools, They're part of the Virginia Community College system, which is a system that we work with very closely as a public four-year institution in the state of Virginia. So we already had existing partnerships with them to an extent that students knew about us as an option. We had transfer pathways where we've built out curriculum sheets so students can see, okay, if I start at TCC, what does that look like transferring to ODU? So there's no guessing, there's no kind of confusion around that. So they have that clear trajectory of if I start here, this is what I need to take, this is how it will transfer to ODU, and this is what I have left to take. That's super important to students so that they can see it is possible and they're not losing any time, which is really important. And I think along those lines of making some of these existing partnerships better, I think we realized although we had this natural pathway, who was overseeing it? How are the students understanding that we all are here to help? So, they have their advisor on the community college side. Once they get over here, they have their advisors, they have their admissions team, like myself and people on my team. But who is there to kind of take them through the whole process? And so the purpose of some of these bridge programs is really for them to have someone with them through the whole process. So they have a team. They have, someone in admissions that's on their team. They have someone with advising, so we can have co-advising so that there's no working with one person, then coming over and working over here. It's all a collective flow to get to ODU. And I think that's really important. And also engaging them sooner. So something that I really like about the TCC ODU Monarch Ready program in particular is that these students get a student ID even when they are attending TCC so that they can come to sporting events. They can go to our library. They can engage with the campus community early. That way, even though they're not here yet, they're still getting to feel that sense of community. They're still getting to see what our community is, be a part of that student body, kind of get to experience the campus as they continue their studies at Tidewater Community College to then transition here. So I think thinking through ways like that of if we already have this existing partnership, how can we make it better? What can we do to provide these students with more engagement opportunities so that ultimately they do still end up transferring to our institution? So I think that would be probably the best words of advice I could give there.
Victoria, I think that's quite a proactive approach. So my next question is to you, Shabazz. Let's talk about innovation now. So how can admission officers future-proof themselves by integrating modern tools and technologies, as you've already mentioned a few? So any innovations you've seen that are actually driving results on the ground?
Yeah, absolutely. When you talk to admission officers, future-proof themselves by strategic adopting modern tools and technologies that should enhance the efficiency, improve engagement, and optimize the outcome. So a few of the core strategies could be like implementing a robust CRM that we have been talking about that can centralize the data, streamline communication, and provide actionable insights into the admission funnel. Right. Then it's all about leveraging AI and machine learning. Right. So understanding and predicting the student behavior by using this technology, right? Like Victoria also said, if you can catch the student early when they are shifting from their particular schools and then they're coming from the community schools or colleges to your organization, if you can give them some experience that also, and not just experience, giving tailored messages based on their preferences, right? So what if a technology that you have, I have adopted can identify that, okay, this particular candidate is more interested in athletics. So you can give them a value proposition, keeping athletics in the core of your communication. So that is an important thing, how, AI can help in that particular one. So another one is, adopting virtual and augment reality, right? Like we were talking about giving campus tours. So not every candidate will be able to come to your campus. So do we have a tool through which we can give them a, augmented or virtual tour of the particular campus, show them how the campus will look like, what type of communities are there, right? Embrace on omni-channel communications, right? Wherever the candidate is present, they should get a same set of information based on the stage where they are stuck in the process. So if I've started filling up my application form, I can see the same status or same type of value proposition at every place, whether I'm going to social media platform, emails. So there should be a connect within these particular ones. And, the next one could be, I talk about innovations. Obviously, we are talking about AI powered, agentic virtual assistant, right? where we have seen that many of the universities have adopted it, where it acts like a counselor or a financial aid consultant. So it can answer all the queries that the candidate might be having, and the candidate need not to struggle to go through different departments for ask for their particular queries or doubts that they're having. Real-time behavior analytics is also one thing that any institutions can adopt, where they can understand what type of email engagement activities that the candidate is doing, or what type of information or communication the candidate is consuming, and based on which the system should be able to define like what should be the next type of communication that you have to share with the particular candidates, right? Gamified recruitment is also something which I think is very less explored, right? Where you can have something in terms of gamification, in terms of recruitment campaigns or drives that will attract the candidates to attend those particular ones. Dynamic financial aid tools, right? Where they can come, like we have seen cost calculators in many of the websites, but can a candidate come and put up the credentials, and can the system tell them automatically, okay, this type of financial aid or this percentage of scholarship or this particular scholarship is going to be relevant for you? So these are some of the innovation tools that I think can be adopted, and many of the organizations are adopting as well to ensure that they are future proofing to the changing dynamics of recruitment.
Thank you so much, Shabazz. That answers very well. So, Victoria, as I mentioned in your introduction, also that you specialize in data driven outreach, right? So, let's talk about data, the fuel of modern recruitment. So, what are some of the practical ways your team at ODU is using data to plan, adjust, or stay ahead?
I love this question because I think data is key in everything we do to make smart decisions. That enrollment cliff is here. We have a smaller market share of students, and we need to be really smart with how we're analyzing data and how we're making decisions in recruitment. So, one of the biggest things that we do is we lean on our CRM heavily. We analyze the data in there, and we really analyze it historically as well. So we look at a year over year comparison, and typically a few years. So maybe a 3 year, year over year comparison to really see how we're trending. And something I've tried to instill in my team this year is taking their own ownership over their territories and that historical data so that they're thinking creatively and are empowered to think through recruitment decisions, of course, in conjunction with me, but think through creative ideas in their area. Because as the admissions recruiters and counselors on the ground, they're talking to the students, they're talking to the families. They understand maybe some trends and challenges that I may not be out in the field and hearing, but then we can bring that back with what they're hearing and look at the data together. And that's something that we've really been working on heavily this past year. So tracking our application numbers, our admit numbers, and our confirmation numbers week to week, and kind of seeing how that compared to last year. And was there something going on around this time last year that maybe impacted those numbers? Are we hearing something about what other institutions are doing that may be impacting our numbers, and thinking through that? And also using, data, more informal data, but data from what we're hearing from the students, as I mentioned, and also hearing from our partners. So one thing that I found very useful is reaching out to colleagues on the high school counseling side of things and say, hey, we've noticed looking at our data, maybe a decrease in applications from your school. Do you have any insight into why that might be? Are you hearing certain things from students? Are they looking at other schools because of XYZ? Are there less students going to a 4-year? Because as I mentioned, we've kind of seen that as a trend. They are a great source of data as well, hearing their thoughts and their perspectives. And so that's been very important. I think also using the data to have targeted marketing. That's really, really key. You want to have that personalized marketing that speaks to the student. And you also want to be able to hit students at different phases of the funnel with stuff that's relevant to them. So for example, we may use our CRM to pull a report to see who has not applied for financial aid yet. We may need to reach out to those students and say, hey, we noticed that you haven't submitted your FAFSA yet. Are you interested? How can we help you through that next step in that process? Or if they have submitted financial aid, have they viewed their financial aid package? Do they know how to do that? How can we help them through that? So there's a lot of things that we can do with the data within our CRM to help students through all those phases of the funnel and really create meaningful messages and actionable steps for them to take. I think also something is, leaning on external partners as well. So working with, enrollment marketing firms that are maybe helping us and providing some of those data insights, listening to them and also seeing what they can provide with the data in their dashboards. So we have a complete picture of not only what's in our own internal database, but also externally. And then, having those thoughtful conversations of looking at all of this, what is our next step to really approach this in a way where it's impactful for the students, it's meeting them where they are, and it's giving them content that they need. So kind of pulling data from all of those avenues to make the best informed decision for the students.
Well, great. That's great. Thank you so much. Shabazz, my next question is to you. So you've worked in diverse markets, right? So let's zoom out a bit. In just one sentence, what makes an enrollment strategy truly future-proof no matter where in the world it's applied?
That's a difficult question, if I have to summarize it in one sentence, but I'll try my really best. So what I can think of is truly future-proof enrollment strategy is adaptive, data-driven, and student-centered, leveraging technology and personalization to meet evolving needs and deliver seamless experience across diverse demographics and platforms. So I hope that's one sentence to summarize what could be a future proof you know in one sentence for enrollment strategy.
Thank you so much. Victoria, let's talk about some internal synergy. So, how do you ensure that what's happening in admission stays connected with academic advising or student support at ODU?
Sure. So I think first and foremost, regular communications and meetings. So, being in admissions, I used to use the analogy of we're kind of like triage at the hospital. We're that first point of contact for students. And even if it's not our area, we still need to know how to speak to it a little bit or connect them with the right person. So to do that, we have to have regular meetings with our partners in financial aid, in advising, in orientation, in our retention offices to make sure we're aware of the processes, we're aware of the correct people to connect people with, and also have collaborative efforts. So a good example of this effort that we had recently was we did a parent series. As I mentioned earlier, connecting with parents and families is very important because ultimately college today a lot of times is a family decision. So we put on a virtual series in April for parents to tune into, and we were collaborating with other offices across campus. Because at this point, these students were admitted and they're making those decisions and need more information from partners in other areas of the university. So we had a session on financial aid. We had a session on internships with our internship office. We had a session on mental health with our counseling services office. And then we had one on housing. So really connecting with those other offices and bringing them to the forefront to be in front of the students and families as well. So they're getting that firsthand knowledge of the processes. So I think really the regular communication and collaborative efforts are really important.
Thank you. And another question to you. What feels like the biggest shift and what's one change you're genuinely glad is here to stay?
Sure. So I think the biggest shift is really that shift to workforce. We've seen in years past where some students will go the community college route first. That's nothing new. However, I think in the past couple years, there's been a huge shift to workforce development. So that's even, outside of the community college, that might be someone going into a trade. That might be someone doing non-degree classes at a community college to maybe get a phlebotomy certificate right away and go right into the workforce. I think with, the current political climate and economic climate, a lot of students are ready to just get a job. And so that's a big shift that we've seen just over the past couple years. Something that I am happy is here to stay, though, is that transfer pipeline. So although we are seeing more students go into the workforce earlier, I think for some students, going to the community college first is a benefit. It helps not only the student be prepared and be ready, but it helps us work with those partners and have a more thought out transfer pipeline. Again, this is something that's always been there, but it's really helpful. And as I mentioned before, sometimes you're recruiting that freshman to be a transfer student. So when I'm having a conversation with a high school student that may have intentions of going to ODU but is really on the fence, I recognize that may be someone that right now this is not the right choice for, but I need to make sure that they understand that pathway and that trajectory, that if they are going to start out getting that phlebotomy certificate that I mentioned, that they know, well, you could go on to then also get an associates of science, and continue on your efforts and then come over here and do a bachelor's in health sciences. So making sure that you're thinking about those things when you're talking with students. And I think that's something that I'm excited about, because I think that there's a lot of good work that can be done with building stronger transfer pipelines since students are going that route.
Right. Well, without taking much of your time and respecting both of your times, I would like to wrap it up here. So, thank you so much, Victoria and Shabazz, for such a thoughtful and forward looking conversation. Well, you've given us a real, unfiltered look into what future proofing the undergraduate admissions office actually means beyond just buzzwords. So, from community partnerships and data driven decision making to scaling and embracing innovation, today's insights were packed with practical takeaways. But before we wrap up, I would like to ask each of you for one final take. It's kind of a parting message for everyone listening in from institutions trying to future proof their admission teams. So, Victoria, what's the one thing you hope our audience takes away today?
So I think the one thing I hope that people take away today is that you need to meet students where they are, whether that's through personalized communications, from the type of events that you're putting on, from recognizing that that student might not be coming in as that traditional freshman as you thought. Meet students where they are and make sure you have a plan to get them to your institution at whatever pace that is for the student.
Absolutely agreeing. Shabazz, your turn. What's the one key message you would leave us with?
I think the most resilient and impactful enrollment strategy are those that balances innovation with empathy, embraces technology to scale personalization while never losing sight of the human connections that inspire students to choose any of the institutions.
Well, thank you so much. Now, to our audience, we hope you leave today with a renewed sense of possibility for what admissions can look like when we plan proactively and think collaboratively. So, it is a recorded session, and the recording will be soon shared with you in our next email. So, thank you for joining us today. Your engagement is what makes Education Circuit by Meritto a valuable experience. We hope you found this session as enriching as we have. Thank you so much to our speakers. We look forward to seeing you in our upcoming editions. Until next time, stay inspired, stay strategic, and keep putting students at the center. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
You know,